judo journey from start to the Olympics? How did it all start?
That's a good one. It all started when I was 7 years old. So my dad did judo. And I used to go with him to judo practice back in the day. And he would be doing the adult class, and I was too young to start at the time. So I was like, we're talking like 3, 4 years old at this time. I was too young to get started, so I would just watch him. I'd watch him do the adult class, and then I'd go home. And after years of watching, you want to get out there yourself. So when I was 7, he started me in judo, and I hated it. I thought I was gonna love it because he did it, but I absolutely hated it.
Wait, so
And every single
let me
day that I
stop
would
you.
go to
Let me stop you
practice,
for a
yep,
second. So your dad was coaching judo, or he was practicing judo?
he was practicing judo himself.
So
He was competing actually. Yeah,
okay, so but he when you saw him, he was already a black belt, or
yeah, he was already a black belt. So he was a black belt before I was born.
okay. So he was just taking it to
Yeah.
but he was taking it to his own practice, not like he was teaching. He was practicing. Okay,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, he was training. So he was taking me to his own training practice, and I was watching him train.
okay. And then you started when you were about 7, and you said you hated it.
I hated it. Absolutely hated it. It was I don't know. I just didn't. It was very difficult. I thought it was going to be easy because when you watch judo and you know nothing about it, it looks easy from the outside
Yeah.
looking in, and then you try to do it, and it's a whole different ball game. So it was extremely difficult for me. I didn't like the challenge, and I also didn't like the fact that I felt like my dad was making me go every day, and I didn't. I really didn't like that. And I was like, I told him every day. I cried every day at practice, and I said, I want to quit. I do not want to do judo every single day. And he just never let me quit.
Did you ever
And
did you ever say
eventually,
did you ever tell
yeah,
him, I think judo is not my sport?
100%. I think I told him that every day too. I was like, this is not for me. I'll do anything else but judo. And he was like, no, you're going to do judo.
It's funny because I just had a parent yesterday saying, this kid, this great kid, but as any kid, judo is not easy. So this kid says to the parent, judo is not my sport, and the parent says, well, what do I do? And so I had that conversation. So that's a great example,
Of
right?
course.
Maybe that kid is going to be an Olympian.
Absolutely. You never know. And I would have, if you would have told me at that age that that everything happened the way it did, I would have told you that you were crazy. So, because at that time, kids don't really want to do what's best for them. Like, kids don't really. I don't think a lot of kids like eating vegetables. But what are you going to do? Stop having them eat vegetables and eat McDonald's every day? You can't do that. So I think that my dad kept me in judo for that reason. He knew it was going to be good for me, and eventually I began to like it. So fast forward till about 10 or 11 years old. So 3 years, I absolutely hated it. And 10 to 11 years old, I started to get a little better, as anybody would. You're living on the mats. I was on the mats every single day. So I had no choice but to pick something up and get better. And I competed my dad took me down to the Junior US Open in Florida. And it was my first time ever getting on a plane, and I got to leave school early. So I told all my friends that I'm going to this tournament in Florida. I'm not going to be in school. It's going to be awesome. And then I ended up winning the tournament. So I ended up winning the Junior US Open. And then I got this medal, and then I felt like everybody around me was proud. And I said, okay, I kind of like this now. Like, I like the idea of traveling, winning, and my friends thinking I'm cool because I'm doing something that they're not. And that's kind of, at that age, that's what motivated me to train harder and actually start falling in love with the sport. And so then I worked very hard. So at that point, after I won that tournament, I said, okay, if I put in work, I think I can win, and I can travel more, and I can get more of these trophies. So I started working harder, and I would work, and me and my dad would do, he would wake up every morning before he would go to work at about 5:30 in the morning, and we would train in my backyard. So he would train me in my backyard every day.
Wait, I gotta stop you.
Yep.
For two questions. First, so let's focus a
Hmm.
little bit again on your dad kind of making you do this. Because as parents, so now as coaches, we deal with this, and as parents, I deal with this. You don't deal with that yet, right?
Not yet.
So, I mean, obviously, it sounds really bad when you say like I'm forcing my kid, like I'm forcing, like the kid hates it, and I'm forcing it. It sounds like really old school, and it's easy to agree that like if you imagine that extreme, that is wrong. But then, but
Yep,
then it's your example, and then you know, like you said, like the vegetables is a good example, like veg or ice cream. You're not going to give you ice cream, kids you ice cream every day, so you can't really do you have to strike the balance. Is there
absolutely.
any words of wisdom that you got there for like how do you strike that balance? How did your dad strike that balance? Did he strike the right balance? If or maybe he was too much.
I think he just wasn't accepting no for an answer, but it was the right balance because when my dad was, even when I was doing judo as a kid, he was never pushing me to win. It was not like you have to win and you have to throw everybody and you have to be the best kid here. It wasn't that. It was you committed to this. You are gonna see this commitment through. And you're going to follow through. And yeah, it's difficult, but life is difficult. And he was teaching me a very important lesson at that age, and that's the lesson that I try to teach the kids now, because as you know, you have a dojo as well. When judo gets hard and some kids don't like it, the parents are kind of like, I don't know what to do. The kid said that judo's not for them. What do I do? Do I push? They feel like they're pushing, but again, it's one of these things where you have to see it through, because on good days and when the kids are throwing people and when they're winning, nobody's saying that. But when things get difficult, whether they're losing or whether they're not doing what they want to do, or it's difficult, that everybody wants to quit. But if you do that, then you're starting, you're setting that mentality at such a young age to stop when something gets hard. Then I think it's detrimental to the kid's future.
Hmm.
And I think my dad knew that, and he wasn't pushing me to win, but he was pushing me to, you're going to show up
Hmm.
and you're going to complete this, and this is your form of physical fitness. You're not just going to sit on my couch and play video games all day. And that's that. I kind of say the same thing to the kids that I train now.
Nice. And then another thing, you said he was waking you up at 5:30 in the morning. How's how
Yeah,
did
but
you like
that's
that?
also something that I wanted to
Oh,
do.
you wanted to do it?
I wanted to do that. Yeah, because my thing was, after I won in the U.S. Open, I realized when I was there, because you know how the U.S. Open, when you go to these tournaments, you're there for a few days. So I was there for a few days. I was watching the older kids working out before the tournament, working out after the tournament in the hotel gym, and I was like, oh man, these kids take this pretty seriously. I'm gonna have to compete against these kids next year if I want to come back here and win another trophy. So I had to, at that point, I was like, I have to do more. Doing judo the 3 or 4 times a week at the kids class that I was currently doing at the time was not going to be enough to compete on that level. So my dad came. I talked to my dad about it, and he's like, well, we can work out. We can wake up early in the morning and work out in the backyard. And it was summertime at that time, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. But then it became wintertime. That's when it got tough again, and I was like, we were outside 2, 3 degrees outside, and we were outside training. Didn't matter what the case was. It was snowing, raining every single day. And that instilled something in me that I use for the future. So, I mean, it was a good thing.
Nice. This is something where failed. I failed on two fronts because there's something I wanted. So my kids never asked me to wake them up at 5:30,
Yeah.
but there's something that I kind of came to. There's something magic about starting the day like by overcoming something difficult. I know it's difficult anyway, but
Yes.
there's something magical about like this is the moment where you're most vulnerable, like you're still half asleep, and overcoming that and doing and starting that day right. There's something um, really good about this, and I try to get my kids to do this. And of course, with a knot, we've done it. We've done it. Not as much and as
Of course.
consistently as I would have liked to, but for a while we've done it. With
Of
other
course.
kids, not really. The other problem I'm facing is my wife. She believes kids need sleep. Did so she's like, how no? She's like, no, no, no. Sleep is more important. And that's where that stops. Did your mom give you that kind of problem anytime?
No, my mother, she wanted me to win. So my mom is a competitor,
Oh,
and she wanted me to win. So yeah, she. You know, sometimes I think that my mom was harder on me than my dad, and my mom never did judo. But when I would, you know, because when I come to my dad, if I after I lost a tournament young as a kid, I would come to my dad, and he was tough on me. But then I would go to my mom, and I was like, "Hey, you know, I lost this tournament because this." She said, "I don't really care about the excuses as to why you lost. You need to work harder so that you can win next time." And she was kind of a no nonsense. She's a no nonsense type person. So I never really got too much comfort from her in that area. She was the one pushing me to get up. She was actually the one that would wake me up to go out and work out. She would come
yeah.
knock on my door and be like, "Hey, it's time to get up and go work out."
Did you
So that's what I was dealing with.
did you at least go to bed at like 8 p.m.?
Yeah, I was going to bed at like 9 p.m. I mean, I was a kid. Back then, there was not really any social media or anything that I could do, and I wasn't allowed to watch TV during the weekdays, like on school nights. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. So, I mean, all there was for me to do was basically go to school, come home, do my homework, and go to sleep, and then wake up and do judo, and then do judo again. Like, I didn't do much else.
Uh-huh. Nice. Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
so it
All
was
right,
easy.
let's continue with your
Yeah.
journey. Sorry to distract.
No, 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 you're good. I like
Mhm.
this. I was so then, you know, after I won the U.S. Open, I started training. So we doing these 5:30 a.m. Workout sessions. We're training extremely hard. Um, and I started doing well. I started competing on the local tour and the local circuit and then the junior national circuit. And, you know, we went through some ups and downs when I was at the bottom of age division. So when I was the youngest one in the age division, I would start out by losing and the competitions were getting harder. But we made adjustments and we trained. And then I began going to the adult class in judo. So I made the transition going to the adult class. That was another difficult transition because I had just started to become the best kid in the class. And I went from hating it and not wanting to be there and crying every day to becoming the best kid in the class. And I feel like just when that happened, the sensei was like, okay, now you're going to go to the adult class. And I was back to bottom of the barrel. So it was tough. It was a tough transition to make. But we made it, and it was the best thing for me because it challenged me in different ways. And realistically speaking, I was never going to fight anybody in a match like I was fighting in practice. Like I was fighting men in practice. I was fighting grown men, and then I was fighting kids in these tournaments. So it was a
How
good
old were
thing.
you at
But
the time?
yeah,
How old were you at the time?
I was probably I went to the kids class probably when I was like 12,
So
12,
when did you start
13.
the adult class?
I'll go about 13,
13.
13
Okay.
years old. Yep. So I started there, 13. And then, so what happened after that was I started to get really involved in judo. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it at the highest level possible. That's what I knew. So we watched the 2004 Olympic Games, Athens, and I watched Jimmy Pedro win a bronze medal. And I stayed up late watching it on TV because of the time difference. It was like 3 in the morning that I was watching the medal rounds. And I remember I was staying over at my grandparents' house, and they were like, "You're not going to get up at 3 in the morning and watch this judo." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And I got up and I watched it, and I watched Jimmy win, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible." And I said, I have to train more and I have to compete more and I want to do this one day. So I guess you could say that's when the Olympic dream was born. Then when I watched it, and I watched somebody that I had kind of known or heard of winning this medal. And it was, it was incredible. And after that, my dad and I traveled. We traveled to every single tournament possible. So I would go on the computer as a kid and I would go on this site called judoinfo.com or judocalendar.net. And it would show all of the tournaments locally and all the tournaments throughout the country that were coming up in the next couple of months. And we would pick 5 or 6 tournaments, no matter where they were. If they were within 10 hours driving distance, and my dad would drive me to every single tournament. We would compete, and I was compete as much as possible. I was training as much as possible. I started working out outside. I started lifting weights and doing things on my own. And that's where I kind of made my rise on the junior national circuit. And I started winning the nationals. And then we went to the senior circuit. So once I did that, I graduated high school. I was good. I was good. And when I was 17 years old, right before I graduated, I fought in the senior national championships, and I fought. It was a very tough division. I was a kid, super tough. I think there was 48 in the division, and I ended up fighting 5 times, but I got a bronze medal. So the podium was Travis Stevens took gold, Taraji, another Olympian, took silver. Ryan Reeser took bronze, and I was on the other bronze. So it was 3 Olympians and 17-year-old high school me
Uh-huh.
on the podium. And that was kind of where I think I made a breakthrough. And then people started to notice, like, oh man, this kid from New Jersey is good. And then I really thought at that time, I was like, okay, now I have to really turn it up a notch, and let's see where we can really go with
Uh-huh.
this. So yeah.
Did you ever
So
fight?
then
I
I
gotta, I
I
gotta ask you
graduated.
this. I
Yep.
gotta ask you this. Did you ever fight
Uh,
Edwin? You and I,
yes, I
some people
did.
might not know, but you and I, we know who Edwin is.
Yes, Edwin. Edwin. So the story with Edwin is he when I came, I started going to Tech Judo, and he was at Tech Judo. He was this guy. He was beating everybody. He was fast. He was smooth. He had great judo, and I was like, who is this guy? So I was a kid, and he would beat me up. He would beat me up bad, and I fought him in my first adult tournament. My first senior tournament was the East Coast Championships in 2008, and I won a few matches in the black belt. I just got my black belt, and I fought him in the semifinal, and he beat me. He beat me pretty quick. He beat me in the semifinal. He was fast. I was like afraid of him, but he was really, and he's still doing judo to this day. So I mean, I commend him. He's an incredible guy. But yeah, he was good. He was a step above me, and he beat me. But he actually became one of my best training partners at that time. So I would train with him. I After he beat me, I was like, okay, I want to go train there. And I was training. We would have private sessions with Jesus,
Uh-huh.
and we would have these private sessions, 3, 4 times a week where he was just running us through hell, and it was tough. But yeah, I trained with Edwin every day from probably about age 16, 20.
Mhm.
When I would come back from college, I would train with
He
him.
was,
Those were my main training
he
partners.
was older than you, right? No,
Yeah, he was older than me, so he was probably about
20.
8 or 9 years
Oh,
older than me,
okay.
probably. So he's older than me. But he was wolf. That guy was good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
because I hear Jesus talk
So
about him.
then,
Jesus talks about him a
oh
lot.
man,
So,
yeah,
so I wanted to verify it, if that's truth.
yeah, he was very, very good. He came over from Colombia. I think he was really good in Colombia. He was on their national team, and then when he came here, he couldn't get citizenship, so he couldn't compete as much as he would liked. But he was winning all. I think he won the New York Open one year, which is a really tough tournament. He won a couple of tournaments, but he was the best training partner that I had at that time. Yep,
Awesome.
and that was good. Yep. So then I graduate. So I graduate high school, and I decide. I said, okay, I have to get better at judo. So I talked to my dad, I talked to my sensei Unesca, and we make a decision to go to Japan. They were like, you got to go to Japan. So I went to Japan for 6 months by myself. So I went to Japan for 6 months. I was living in a dorm at Nichidai. I was living in a dorm with 8 people in the same room, all Japanese. Nobody spoke English. I was in these dorms, these bunk beds. So it was bunk beds, 8 people to a room. Um, Really, really, really culture shock for me. We were doing over 25 rounds of randori a day, 6 minutes each round. We were waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to run, which wasn't a problem for me. But the randori, I had never known that this level of judo existed out in the world. I thought, oh, this is, I've been to judo in the US, I've been to judo in my dojo, but I hadn't really been outside of there much. And I didn't realize that, wow, this is a whole different level of people. And I remember I was keeping a journal. I actually just came across that journal recently. I was keeping a journal while I was there, and I would write entries every single day after practice how I would feel. And there was so many times that I wanted to quit. And my dad actually left it. He left the ticket open ended. He said, "Listen, you're gonna go there, we'll see what you do. Like you go there for 5 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever. And if at any point it gets too difficult, because I know there's going to be culture shock. It's weird. You don't speak the language. I don't know how you're going to survive. But if at any point where you can't handle it, you call me at any time, and I'll bring you back. I'll get you a ticket to go back." And probably about after the first month, I had the worst practice ever of my life. I got choked out. Guy was choking me out unconscious. So he choked me out. I would tap. He wouldn't let up. I would go out, wake up, choke me out again. I would tap. He let me. So the same thing happened like 7 times. And I was like, I got killed in this practice. We did 25 rounds. I got the red sash out. So I had to go every single round. And I don't think I threw anybody once in the 3 hour practice that we had. I didn't get one throw. And I went to go call my dad. I went to call my dad and say, "Hey, I need you to book me I need you to book me a ticket. I want to leave." And my phone wouldn't let me connect to call him for whatever reason. I
Your
couldn't
hands
call.
were
It was the
your hands
only
were
time I
shaking.
couldn't call him.
Your hands were shaking.
Yes. It was something, it just would not connect the call. And I was like, okay, maybe it's meant to be where I stay and I tough this thing out. And the thing happened in Japan where once I kind of proved myself that I was going to be there for a while and I was going to train extremely hard and I didn't care who liked me or who didn't. Um, then they kind of accepted me, and it became an incredible experience. They started taking me out to dinner and they started taking me out for food, and I made some lifelong friends from that trip. But more importantly, I gained grit from that trip, and my eyes were open now to, oh wow, there's another level of judo that exists here, and these people are training like this. I'm not doing enough once again. And I embrace that. And every single summer after that moment, I would spend in Japan. I spent all my summers in Japan
So let
training
me ask you real
from
quick.
that.
So what are the like logistics of doing that? Like anybody can just do it, or did you have to qualify? Did you have to
Um,
apply? How do you
no,
do this?
I gotta recommend. No, anybody can do it. I think that my sensei was just kind of like, "You're ready for it. You can do it," and he sent me over
But
there,
how? What is the
and that's
sensei?
how. That's
He
how.
had like connections. Like how would I do it?
Yeah, he had connections. So oh, well, you would have to get somebody that knows one of the university coaches there, and then you would have to have them call the university coach and say, "Hey, for example, I want to not to go to train at Tokai University for 2 months." And they would be like, "Okay, here's the paperwork. Fill out this paperwork." And it's the basic stuff. You don't have to qualify. They don't care. As long as you're decent and you're a black belt and you're willing to train, you can go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So once if you just have to know somebody that has a connection with one of the universities or wherever you're trying to train, and then you're in.
Nice. And does it cost a lot of money? I mean, I know the ticket costs the money, but just
No,
to stay.
the ticket, the ticket was the most expensive part. So because I was staying in such terrible conditions, I mean, I was staying with, like I said, 8 people in one room. I think the rent and food included was like $400 a month.
Uh-huh.
It's almost nothing.
And
Yeah, so it's very, very cheap.
did you learn any Japanese?
Yeah, so that was another thing. So when I went over there, I had the intention of learning Japanese, and I signed up for Japanese school. The problem with that was we would wake up, I think we would wake up at like 5:15 to run, and we would do this sprint workout, and then the Japanese school started at 7:30. So I would get to Japanese school just completely exhausted and tired from there. So I was falling asleep in Japanese school. So I actually stopped going to Japanese school because I was falling asleep in class. So, but I naturally learned Japanese throughout all of my time being there, and it's my Japanese is okay, but not really that good. But I can have conversation, I can get around, I know how to do things like
That's
that.
awesome. I'm trying to learn, but it's not easy. It's
Yeah,
not easy.
it's a great language.
It hurts my mind. I thought it would be easy because I already know, three languages, but it just completely hurts
Of
my
course,
mind because I just don't get it. Like it's different. It's a
very different.
different logic.
Absolutely, no, it really is. It was difficult for, like I said, I dropped out. So,
Okay. Well, let's test the Japanese. Konnichiwa.
konnichiwa. Yeah,
Genki,
that's the
genki
extent
desu
that we
ka?
know. Genki desu.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
That's the
of
extent of my
course.
Japanese right there.
That's it. That's it. No, but it's incredible. It's an incredible language. It was an incredible experience, and yeah, I think that experience is the reason why I had a lot of success because I had to persevere. Every single day I hated, like that was it, I went back to hating it every day. I hated the idea of going to training. I hated not knowing anybody there. I had no friends. I had no one to talk to. And it was miserable. It was brutal, but it was the experience that I wouldn't be who I am today if
Mhm.
it wasn't for that experience and persevering through that.
What would you say, like, as far as like Japanese judo and training being so different? Is it mostly the just the grit, just like the suck it up and do it, or is it mostly like the discipline of sticking with some kind of technique and just drilling it until it's perfect?
The Japanese way, I think, they're so good and they've had so much success because of the actual looseness in judo. Like they don't care about being thrown, and they're fighting very loose. They're loose on the gi. They're very loose. They're using their bodies and they're just trying different things. Like that was my experience with them. They were moving and trying different things, but they were never too tight. Like they're never focused on too much grip fighting. They're focused, put hands on the gi wherever you get your hands on the gi and use your body to figure the rest out. And they would use their movement and they would use their ashiwaza and things of that nature to figure it out. But if they got thrown, if somebody came in for a throw, they would take the fall. So that's why there was not a ton of injuries because you would think if they're doing 25 to 30 rounds of randori a day, there's going to be a ton of injuries. But there wasn't because of how loose they were and how free their judo was.
Mhm.
And I think that is the reason why that's the reason why they've had success. And I think that's the reason why the Japanese don't really ever get tired when they're fighting. And they don't really panic in situations because they're used to using their bodies, not just their hands, and focused on gripping or focused on this one technique. So if this one gripping exchange or a sequence or this one technique doesn't work, some of us mentally break down and like, oh, well, I don't know what to do now. They have an answer for everything because of how loose they are and how they use their bodies,
Are they
in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, are they? This is awesome. This is so useful. Like
Definitely.
I'm gonna listen to this. I'm gonna have people listen to this part like all over again because everybody has a question. How, like, what's the magic? What's the magic there? And this
Absolutely.
is, and
Absolutely.
we all need this confirmation from you, and that this
Hmm.
is how it really is, because it's like everybody says be loose, but then you get competitive and you not
Yes.
lose. And
Exactly.
and also, like, the Japanese have like the reputation of being like very orthodox, like not necessarily trying like something, like you have like this Georgian, like weird Georgian throws or whatever, or like different stuff.
Yep.
But I think that it's not necessarily true. I'm not sure if this is true, because it is. I do see that they're very good at the orthodox throws like Uchimata, Ochigari. But then
Mhm.
once in a while, I was like, oh, look at that! They're actually very good at some of those weird throws too. So what was your experience?
So, you're absolutely right because in the past, I think in like the 90s, doing judo, the Japanese did orthodox. They did traditional judo, uchimata, sanagi, things of that nature. Taitoshi, two hands on the gis, big throws, traditional judo. But I think that when the Georgians started to come onto the play and the Russians and things of that nature in 2000, the early 2000s, um, the Japanese had no choice but to adapt because they started losing to these different grips. Once people started using, the Georgians started using this Georgian grip and other people started using other grips, some of the Japanese athletes were losing, or even if they won, they weren't winning as easily as they used to. So the Japanese Federation actually started bringing, for the first time ever, they started having people leave, their top guys leave Japan and train in other countries. You would never see Japanese at international training camps because they had so many people to train with in Japan and they were the best. So why would they ever leave to go anywhere? But now they started leaving and they actually started allowing a lot, they started inviting a lot more people in. So the Japanese would spend, I watched, the Japanese would spend a lot of time in Mongolia training. And when they're in Mongolia, they would do the Mongolian wrestling. Then they would go to Georgia and they would do the Georgian wrestling. So they were getting good at working the entire gi, not just the lapel sleeve. So now they were getting better at using their bodies. And if other people had these unorthodox grips on them, they would now be comfortable in that situation. So I think it's one of the smartest things that the Japanese Federation did was allowing their athletes to go out and bringing other people in that knew how to maneuver throughout these situations.
Mhm.
And now, if you watch Japanese, you see them throwing from all different grips. You see all different throws. And then when they do fight the Georgians or the Mongolians or people with that style of judo, they're very comfortable in that
Yeah, yeah.
situation. And I think that was very smart. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So okay. So now let's finish going through your judo journey. Then we go
Yeah.
to the move on to the after the Japanese training.
Yeah. Yeah. So after Japan, I came back and I was like, okay, this is perfect. So I ended up going to school. I went to San Jose State University. So they had a big judo team there. It was probably 35, 40 guys on the mat, black belts every single night. Everybody was good. And I said, okay, I want to be around a bunch of like-minded people with aspiring towards one goal. And I get to go to school too. I study business. So I was studying in school and doing judo full time. And at this time, I said, okay, I am going to try to, we're talking about 2011 now. I was like, all right, I'm going to try to, let's see how far I can take judo. So I would go to school all year. I would train all year. And then I was going to Japan for half of the summer. And then Travis Stevens had actually called me and asked me to be one of his training partners. So he invited me up to Boston for 2 weeks to train. So I went up there, we trained, we fought every single day. And from that experience came another experience where Travis asked me to go to the Olympics as his official training partner in 2012. So I went to London. So I got to go to the Olympics in London in 2012. And that experience in itself, I helped Travis warm up. I was warming him up. I was with him the whole time. I went through his entire Olympic camp with him. So I went through his Olympic preparation with him. And it was very eye opening because I saw what it took to get to the Olympics and to perform well and firsthand. And I saw, how many falls I had to take, how many times a day he was training. And then when I got to the Olympics, it was a surreal experience. I was like, oh man, I have to be, not I want to be here. I have to be here next time. And it was an incredible journey. But I went to the Olympics 2012 as a training partner, enjoyed it. It opened my eyes. And then from that moment on, I wrote in my notebook in 2012, sitting in the Olympic dorm room, I wrote in my notebook 2000 everything depends on 2016. So everything that I did in throughout my day, if it didn't help me get to the 2016 Olympics, I wasn't going to do it.
Hmm.
And that was it. And then so I trained. I changed my entire mentality. I trained. I started training very hard. I started competing as much as possible internationally. And in 2013, I had a breakthrough year, and it was probably one of my biggest setbacks. Set me up for a huge breakthrough. So I was fighting in the nationals, the senior nationals. Last time I fought in the senior nationals, actually, I was fighting in the finals and against Gary St. Ledger, and I was winning this match. I was winning, but I, I was winning, right? So I was winning this match, kind of dominating the match, and with 1 second left, it was a final, so nobody was only Matt out. Everybody was watching. I got thrown with 1 second left, 1 second on the clock, in front of everybody, and I was like, "Oh man!" And I felt like my world had collapsed. And I was like, this, how could this happen to me? Oh my God, this is insane. I trained so hard. And I allowed myself to be like that for 24 hours. And then I was like, okay, I have to come back and I have to come back stronger. So 3 months later, I fought at the Miami Grand Prix in 2013, first ever international tournament. I fought a bunch of really good guys and I ended up taking a bronze medal. And so again, that setback set me up for an incredible comeback. And that was kind of the start of my international judo journey. And from then on, I was competing internationally and I went on to make a couple of. I made the world team that year. Competed at the World Championships in Brazil. Um, Won a few more international tournaments, and I ended up being in a position in 2016 to qualify for the Olympics. But I had to get through the Pan Am Championships, so I was sitting right outside of qualification. So if you guys know judo, at that time it was the top 22 males in the world qualified for the Olympics, and I was number 24. And what happened was, I had to get to the final of the Pan Am Championships. Granted, I had never medaled at the Pan Am Championships before, and I had never beaten two of the guys that I would have to face to get to the to finals. I lost to them. I think I was like an 0-6 combined record. I've never beaten any of them. I beat the first guy, so I won my first match, and then I'm in the quarterfinal. I win the second match by Epone. Now I'm in the semifinal against this Mexican, but he was from Cuba. He trained in Cuba. Never beaten him before in my life. I was 0-4 against him, something like that, and it was tough. It was a tough match, but I trained so hard for that event, and everything in my life leading up to that point was to get to the Olympics in 2016. So I knew I had to do what I had to do to get there, and the match ended up going to golden score overtime. It was very very tough, and I won that match. I think on discipline and conditioning. The guy got tired, and I wasn't going to get tired. He got tired, and I ended up throwing him, and I went to the Olympics, and that I qualified. I officially qualified for the Olympics. Trained extremely hard. Went to the Olympics. I won my first match in Rio in 8 seconds or 9 seconds, something crazy.
Wow.
And my family was there. Everything was beautiful. And then I lost the next match to France. It was a tight match. I think I lost by like a Yuko at the time, but it was a tough match. And but my Olympic experience was I was happy to be there. I was really happy to be there. I overcame a lot to get there. My family got to watch me fight in another country, and it was good. It was life was good at that point. But then I knew leaving the after my second match, I said, okay, I need more. It's not just good enough to qualify for the Olympics anymore. I said I want to go to Tokyo in 2020, and I want to get a medal. So then all eyes were on Tokyo, and everything, the training changed once again. And I said I got to do more. I got a mental coach. I got a mobility coach. I got a strength and conditioning coach. So I hired a group of professionals. That's the one thing. The major changes that I made from 2016 to 2021 was everything that I did was professional. I hired a nutritionist, and I was coming out of my pocket with all of this. And I invested every dime that I made went back into developing my judo. Every single dime. And everybody was like, Colton, what are you doing? Why are you getting a nutritionist? Why are you getting a mobility coach? Why are you doing all of this stuff? And I said, there's only one thing that can stop me from accomplishing my goal, and that's if I get injured. And how do you not get injured? The more mobile you are, the more flexible you are, the less likely it is going to be for you to get injured. And that's what I was doing a lot of that, and I made those changes, and I lived a complete professional life from 2016 to 2021. And I went through a bunch of trials. COVID happened in 2020. We were 3 months out from the
Oh yeah.
Olympics, and yeah, 3 months out. And I knew this was going to be my last Olympics, and I was done with judo after this. So I was like, this is it for me. It's going to be done. 3 months out, I get a call. Sorry, the Olympics are not going on. I said, what does that mean? Are they canceled or are they postponed? Nobody knew what was going on. So for 6, 7 months, we were just in limbo, and I had to keep training because I didn't know if they were going to make I was going to get another call like, hey, the Olympics are in 2 months. So I kept training, but nobody knew. The world shut down around us. So all I could do was mountain bike ride. I was mountain bike riding and doing sprints up hills. That's all I could do because everything was closed. And yeah, it was tough. It was a very tough time because it was uncertainty. We were dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and nobody, I didn't operate well in that environment. And but long story short, they called the Olympics back on, but they said, hey, there was 3 months and you were basically qualified. We're going to reopen qualification for 1 year, and we're going to add 15 more tournaments. So now you essentially had to
Mhm.
requalify for the Olympics. So I did that. I got in, trained really hard. I went to Tokyo. No fans, so it was a different experience. There was no spectators allowed in the stadium because of COVID, and I went there, and I remember sitting in the day I fought. I was in the Nippon Budokan, and it was the same place that when I went to Japan in 2009, when I graduated high school and I went to Japan, it was the exact same place that we would sit and watch the All Japan Championships. So we would watch the All Japan. So I was sitting with all the Japanese guys watching every tournament that they had was at this place. So was very familiar with the place. And now here I was about to fight here. So my whole journey came full circle. It started in Japan. My international journey started in Tokyo at this Nippon Budokan. And I sat there in the stands at the top and I was looking down at the mats and I said, man, from a little boy, 12 years old, in my backyard with my dad, working out every single morning, working out every day, and him driving me to all these local events, who would have ever thought that that boy could get here? And that's all I thought about. And I was like, you know what? I know this is my last tournament I'll ever compete in. I want to I want to be the best version of myself today. And I went out there. It was the first tournament in my life I wasn't nervous for. I was not nervous, no nerves. I went out there, I won my first match, and then I fought the current world silver medalist in the next match, and we went deep into golden score. And I lost very very tight, was all right, but it was I left everything I had out on the mat, and I was satisfied. I was devastated because I wanted to medal, I wanted to win, but at the end of the day, I knew that I had given everything that I had to competing in this sport, and that was enough for me.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you real quick. There's something that you kind of went through real very very fast, but I think it's very important. You said
Mm.
you went to college and got your business degree. Because this seems
Yes.
insignificant, but I think it is because young people, growing up, and they're like, well, what do I do? I can't do everything, right? I mean, I'm
Yep.
guessing your parents would not have it that way, right? You would be like, you
Exactly.
would you tell your parents, like, listen, I'm doing judo. I can't really go to college. I'm doing judo here. I cannot do everything. What would your parents tell you at that time?
I tried to tell him
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and I said, "Listen, I just want to do judo." Of course, yeah, I didn't want to go to college. I was like, "I just want to do judo. I don't really care about anything else." And they said, "Absolutely not." They said, "You have no choice. You will be going to college." And but they compromised because I wasn't going to go to a local college. I went to San Jose State, which is in California, and it had the best judo team in the country at the time. So I could do more judo now than I ever wanted to do, and I was around much better people, but I had to go to school. So that was the only thing, and I had to do well in school. If I wasn't doing well in school, they would take me home,
Mhm.
and that was the deal that we had. So I did well. I did it, and I actually liked. I didn't mind school. Like, I didn't mind it. I liked it. I was pretty good at it, and so I did school. I did judo because everybody else was doing it, so I had no choice. We would just go to school, go to classes, and train,
How
and that
did
was
you
it.
how did you get
And
accepted into it? Is it
yep.
was it did were you did you have a good GPA and you took your SATs, or did they take you because you were good at athlete, or how did that work out?
Little bit of both. So I was a decent student, but it was more so because of judo. So I got a partial scholarship because of judo. So it was between San Jose State and Colorado, and they offered me more money. So I got more money for them just because I was good at judo. And but I couldn't get in if my grades weren't good. They wouldn't let you in. So I had to be a little bit of both. And it was good. It was good. Yep.
Do you feel like that was a good investment?
Yep.
Like, honestly, because
Oh,
I'm not saying
absolutely.
this is like, I'm actually pretty open-minded about it. I don't think, going to college is the only way, and education is not something that you necessarily get from other people. You can get it from books, you can get it from life. There's different paths in life. So I want your opinion.
Absolutely. I think like I said, I was against it. I didn't want to go to college. But the one thing that college taught me, this is, and I think this is worth the investment. The one thing that college taught me was structure. I didn't. I had to meet deadlines. You have to meet certain deadlines. Nobody cares about what excuse you have. You have to do this, and it held you accountable. So I was being held accountable, and I had to follow this structure. If you asked me to tell you 10 things that I learned in school, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what I learned in statistics class. I couldn't tell you what I really learned in accounting class. I learned more from the books that I was reading outside of school. I read a couple good business books outside of school, a couple self help books outside of school that were really good. But I think that school taught me structure. It taught me how to meet deadlines. It taught me accountability, and that's about that. So, was it a good investment? I think it was. Um, and also, you know what the good thing about that was? that all my eggs weren't in one basket. Because you and I both know, if I could have a great day at judo, or I could have a terrible day at judo. And if I had a terrible day at judo and nothing to fall back on, then it's almost like my life is ruined. Like, oh my God, I can't see anything else. But if I had a terrible day at judo and then I got a 95 on this exam that I had, then okay, we got some balance now. Now my day is okay. Not all, and if I got injured, and that happened too, whenever I would get injured, if I had nothing else going on in my life, it feels like your whole world is collapsing around you. But when I was injured, I would focus on school and other things that I was doing, and it provided really good balance for me. And I think it was necessary to not be complete. I was invested in judo, but not be 1,000% invested 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
because then it really plays a toll on your mental.
You know what? When you say this, it makes me think. I'm sure you know Jack Hatton.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that was
So
my roommate.
he what did you know him well?
Yeah, that was my roommate. So I lived in Boston. So we lived in Boston together. So I moved to Boston. So that was my roommate and training
Right.
partner. So he was my training partner and roommate for about 2 years.
So for
Yeah.
people who don't know, so Jack Hatton, he also was my friend. We didn't spend much time together, but we met in the judo camp, and we just
Hmm.
connected. And it's like we didn't talk, we didn't spend a lot of time consistently, but whenever we met, we like had this connection. And I always said, like, Jack,
Yeah.
like I made him, he was like 17, I think, and he was like a kid basically. And I said, Jack, you're going to the Olympics. Like I see that, like it's
Yeah.
not just because you can kick my ass. It's just like that spirit, and that the way you do it is like, uh, that I feel it. And then I
Yeah.
was so proud when he made the Olympic team, and then he, shortly after that he
Yeah.
took his life. And so I want to talk to you
Yeah.
about it because I want to hear what you think. Like it's so inexplicable because like it's like you know just making the Olympic team, that's right there. That's already a dream come true. And also so
Yeah.
many people looking up to him and thinking, wow, this guy is like, this is where I want to be. Like so many, he's like a role
Yeah.
model for so many people, and it seems like but so it's like everybody's asking like why, and then one of the things is that like I think his eggs were like in one basket. Like he was really like I think that's the feeling I got. He confessed to me. He told me once. He also went to college and stuff, but he said I only feel at home on the mat. That he like it was like
Yeah.
his word.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. So Jack, I've known him well because when I was at San Jose State, so I was the captain of San Jose State. Jack came to San Jose, so he came to San Jose State, and he was on the team for a year, and that's the exact thing. He wouldn't go to school, like he just would not go to class. He would just do judo. All he wanted to do was do judo, and they're like, Jack. I had to have multiple conversations with him, and I was like, Jack, you have to go to school. Like you can't just skip school and just do judo. You have to go to school, but he just wouldn't. So, he was like, college is not for me. So he left San Jose after a year and he went to Jimmy's. He went to Boston. And I left San Jose that next year and I went to Boston. So I moved to Boston as well. So when we were there, it was all judo. We did a lot of judo. Eggs were in one basket. It was good. It was okay though. I had other things going on outside, but for most people it was judo. But the thing with Jack was, and during that time, we were so close to the Olympics, and Jack was sitting right outside of qualification. So I think this is around October, yeah, and qualification was going to be over in I think March or April at that time. So he was sitting right outside, and I remember we had dinner together actually, like a week before his death, or a week and a half before his death. We had dinner together because I was in Boston for a DVD shoot, and I talked to him and I said, "Hey man, we were both fighting for an Olympic spot." And I said I was in qualification. He was right outside. He was like, how do you how do you not focus on judo all the time? We had this conversation at dinner. He's like, how do you not focus on judo all the time? I was like, you have to just have other things outside of your life that you're doing, whether it's go find an activity, find a hobby, do anything else outside of judo. And but I think that with the pressure, there was so much pressure, and a lot of people don't understand this. When you are trying to make an Olympic team, you feel like there's so much pressure on you to do it because everything in your life, it's a 4 year, 5 year process, and everything in your life for all of those years, and you feel like it's a failure and it was a waste of your time if you do not accomplish this goal. And it's not that. Now that I'm on the outside looking in, I try to tell all my athletes, hey, there's way more to life than making an Olympic team. Like you have to have, that's why I think it's so important to have things that you're doing outside so that if judo is not working out, it does not feel like your world is collapsing. That's huge. And I think that was his thing. He was so invested in judo and he wanted to win so bad and he wanted this, he wanted to make an Olympic team. He wanted to have an Olympic medal so badly that, when things didn't start going that way, and there's other things I'm sure that were taking place, but, he was an incredible, incredible kid. Like I said, he was my roommate on tour. When we were on the world tour, he was my roommate for years. He was my best training partner in the room. Really, really, really hard worker, great kid. But I think that he put a lot of pressure on himself to making that team. And I didn't think that there was enough outside of what he was doing outside of judo off the mat to take his mind off of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think about it a lot because we put pressure on ourselves, but also the outside forces contribute to that pressure. It's like everybody, your parents want you to win, your coaches want you to win, because everybody, it's like their ambition. It's like your coach has an
Yeah.
ambition, like my kid, and it seems like a good thing, but I think it's important to keep in mind that I think, I don't know if you agree with me, like the Olympic medal, going to the Olympics, so that medal, it's nice to put that as a goal because, that's how we function as people. Like we need a tangible goal to look forward to. But in reality, that is actually not the goal. The actual journey is the goal. The actual process is the goal. The people you meet, the experience.
There.
What do you think about that?
That's what I say. If you listen to any interview that I ever have or any podcast that I've ever been on, I say those exact words. The journey is the most important part. That is it. Like, and sometimes it took me, I had to finish judo and I had to remove myself from judo. I had to finish competing, remove myself from competition, look back, and then say, wow, you know what? At the time, if you told me when I was training for the Olympics, if you told me, hey, you're not ever going to make an Olympic team, your whole life will be the same. Your journey will be the same. Your matches will be the same. You'll win the same amount of matches, but you're not going to make an Olympic team. I would say, then what am I doing this for? That's ridiculous. I'm done. If I'm not going to make it, this is all waste of time. And I look back now on everything that happened in my career, and I say, who cares about that? That's the most insignificant part of the whole thing. It was the amount of places that I got to travel, the people that I got to meet, the cultures that I got to experience, the trials and tribulations that you have to overcome throughout in this whole experience. That's what it's about. The journey is the way. The destination, who cares about the destination? It's all about the journey. And that's it. And that's what I try to teach now to all of the people that I'm coaching because everybody's so focused on results.
Right.
Result, result, result. Don't worry about the result. The results will come if you can learn to embrace and enjoy the journey. That's it.
Embrace the journey. That's awesome. I gotta ask you.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. There we go. and this is like, right, that phrase. There's so much to unpack. I keep saying this. People don't understand it. But anyway, let's leave it for another conversation because I'm sure you got stuff to do, and I think I gotta drive one of my kids to school. But let me ask you something that I gotta ask you. Okay, so look, how about
Yeah.
completely different subject, just because we're running out of time. Is there racism in America? Is there a DWB? Is that a myth or is that true?
I was always taught as a kid, because I think my parents and grandparents grew up in a different time when racism was a lot more prevalent. So I was always taught as a kid when you encounter, let's just say police, for example, if I get pulled over by the cop, it's yes sir, no sir, blah 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 blah, because they said this is the way I was taught, as a black man in this country, you cannot take any chances. You can't take any chances, and you have to abide by the law. You have to be above the law all the time. You have to be better than you're expected to be because you're already at kind of a disadvantage. Me personally, I have not experienced any racism. I have not even experienced racism with police. All my experience with police to this point has been pleasant. But again, I was always yes sir, no. So I understand authority. When somebody's pulling me over, for just using this as an example, when I get pulled over by a cop, it's not why the hell am I getting pulled over? Why are you pulling me over? And no, it's yes sir, no sir. What did I do wrong? Blah 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 blah. That's it. And I follow those rules, and I've never had to deal with it. And even now, I've never really dealt with too much racism outside of in judo, outside of judo in my regular life. And like I said, I've been around the world, and I've seen different cultures, and I've seen where racism is huge in some places. And but I've never personally experienced too much racism. Does it exist? Absolutely. Do I think it exists? Yes. But I think there are good people, and I think there are bad people, just like anything else. I think there are racist people, and I think there are not racist people. But I think it goes both ways. There's not just racist white people. I think there's racist black people too. And and that's where. But have I experienced too much of it? I can't say that I have. And if I have, I haven't been able to notice it.
That's a good. It's just funny because that's one when you say like, okay, listen, there's also racist black people. This is the best thing to say because this is exactly the point against racism because they're just like they're
Yep.
smart and dumb white people, there are smart and dumb black people, and smart
Yep.
and dumb Jewish people. So it's
Yep.
like, you got to
Yep.
embrace both
Yep.
sides on everybody. So this is,
You have to.
you can't just because you're saying the good thing about some people, and that doesn't mean, like let's say you become so woke, then you say like, okay, all the
Yeah.
black people are angels. Well, guess what? I think
Yeah.
that makes you racist right there because you're
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
denying black people the human quality of being whatever, dumb or
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. No, it's 100% true. It's 100%. I think it goes both ways, and you can't. I think and that's another reason why I think that I'm grateful for the journey that judo took me on, because I was able to see and experience so many different countries and cultures, and see real problems in the world, and go to these third world countries and live there and do whatever, and then you're like, wait, we live in America, basically a melting pot. We have everything that we could have ever asked for, and you just experience real life shit. Excuse my language. That's I experience real life stuff when I go to these different places, and I think it opened my eyes, and I was a lot like, again, whenever I would experience something that I thought could have been racist, I was just like, yeah, this is I'm not even going to deal with this. It's step. There's bigger problems to deal with than that. This person's ignorant. There's going to be ignorant people, and that's that. But yeah, it goes both ways.
But then there's a topic kind of related to racism and also related to
Mm-hmm.
sports, which is patriotism, which is another
Yeah.
whole interesting thing to unpack. We may be if you ever willing to have another conversation. This is something that I think
Yeah.
is a very interesting subject because okay, so you haven't personally experienced the racism, but what do you think of people that, like, let's say, take the knee, right, or don't stand up for the
Yeah.
anthem to in order to show something? And how do you process that? What do you say to those people who say this is bad? What is your take on that?
Yeah. My take on that is, I think that, when Colin Kaepernick and those guys were doing that for a period of time, they were standing up for something that they believe in, right? So they're standing up for, they think there's injustices that are going on against their people, and to bring light on that, they chose to take a knee during the national anthem. My opinion on that, I think that without them doing that, I don't think it would have been noted. I don't think that the injustices that were going on at that time would have been noticed as much by people, because such public figures chose to do that. It brought a lot of light on the racism that was going on towards black people at that time. So I did not disagree with that. I didn't disagree with them doing it. Now, if you ask me if I would have done it At that time, no, because I had the opportunity to do it a couple of times and I didn't. But the reason that I didn't do it wasn't because of patriotism. It wasn't because of, oh, I'm so American. I'm not going to do this. I have to stand for the national anthem. It was more so because that it's two different stages, right? These guys are getting seen by millions. I think they're able to make change by being seen by millions. If I do it, maybe 500 people that already know me and already know where I stand are going to see it. I don't think that a lot of change is going to be made. So, do I agree with what they did? Yes, I don't disagree with it. Like I said, I think that it brought a lot of awareness and I think that eventually it did a lot of good, but it hurt them personally. So I think it hurt them personally. I think it hurt their careers, but I think that there's something to be said there for standing up to what you believe in that much where you're taking it over your own selfish needs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my opinion on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I think we have to think about it as coaches too, because I mean, the in every judo tournament, and I know we're going a long time, but I'll just let's just finish this. Try to wrap up on this point a little bit. Uh, in
Yeah.
every judo tournament, we have to stand up for the American anthem. So,
Yeah.
so this patriotism card is being kind of shoved down your throat. And
Yeah.
so my take on, so I think a lot about it because I mean, this is not my interview, this is your interview, but well, let's
Yeah.
try to make it short. Like, so there's a great Russian writer Tolstoy that you might have heard of, and
Yeah.
long time ago he basically, and he was like a philosopher, right? He's not just like writing
Yeah.
to please people. He was trying to get to the truth. And one of his essays, he has a long essay on patriotism, and basically
Yeah.
back in the 19th century, he basically said it. Patriotism is a tool that governments use to make you go to war, and he just
Yeah.
that was his thesis, and then he had this long essay just to prove that point. And the way he proved it, it's like at first it's like, really, I mean, you kind of see it, but you kind of don't. But the more you think about it, the more I thought about
Yeah.
it, the more I realized it's true. And people make excuses. They'll say, well, it's just a love for my country. What's wrong about love for my country? But there's many things you can answer to that. I mean, it's like when you make little kids do something without even, they don't even understand. When they say, "I pledge allegiance to the state, to the flag," like, are they really understanding what they mean by
They
that?
don't get it.
They don't. So when you make a little kid
No.
repeat something they don't understand, is that not like indoctrination? Indoctrination, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
and another quick point is, like, you have to remember, like, you can say, this is my way of respecting the heroes, right? Okay, right, the
Yeah.
soldiers that gave their lives, because I see both points, right, both sides. But you have to remember that there were the heroes that you have to respect, but there were also the victims. So sometimes
Yes.
you're turning,
Yes.
so when you turn your face one direction, you turn your back to the other direction.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
have to understand, for somebody respecting the heroes, but for somebody that's disrespecting or completely ignoring the
The
victims.
victims.
So
Absolutely.
uh, therefore, I mean, I don't make it. I mean, personally, like, I try not to make it a big deal, but like, if I happen to
Yeah.
be sitting, I'll stay sitting. Like, that's just my personal thing. If I
Yeah.
happen to be standing, I'm not gonna
And that's
make a big deal, because, like, I also, like, I'm conscious of, like, I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, but like,
of
I
course.
see like both sides.
Yeah, me too. I think that we both see both sides to it. And I think that's what I think you have to have an open mind when it comes to this stuff because there's always two sides. And I think as long as you can see both sides, I think it's a good thing. But if you're like so far in this direction or so far in the other direction and you can't even look at the other side, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Okay,
It's tough.
Colton Sensei, thank you very much. I think
Thank
my daughter's gonna kill me for being late to school. I, I,
Thank
I
you. I appreciate this. This is a great
I
conversation.
hope we can do this again. Like I said before, for me, this is just an excuse, because when else can I get this celebrity, like, for 1 hour? This is this is such an honor, and I love it.
Absolutely, it was an honor. It was an honor talking to you. This is actually I like this conversation. I like that we didn't just talk about judo. So that's awesome for me. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate you.
よし、Thank you. ありがとうございました。
Thank you. Arigato gozaimasu. I'll talk to you later. Thank you guys.
またね。
Bye bye. Bye bye.